The dark goddess Morrigan. The Morrigan, the guardian of Ireland, is an ancient goddess of war, battle, prophecy, sovereignty, and other-world power. The first accounts of the Morrigan go back to 700 BC. Her name means Great Queen. The Morrigan is a shapeshifter. She has the magical gifts to be seen as a crow, raven, wolf, eel, cow, horse, an old lady, and a youthful woman. She is tied deeply to the land and its protection. The Morrigan leads men and women into war, taking the positions as a crow flying high above the fighting, providing magical protection to where it is needed. As the crone, she speaks of the future, omens and things to come. She can bring a warning to a ruler, king or prince, and at the same time foretell their demise if they do not heed her warnings. The Morrigan is often seen as one powerful dark energy, broken up into different aspects depending on the priesthoods who honoured her through her different faces and variations within their practices. The Morrigan is one goddess, but also many goddesses at the same time. She can be depicted as the goddess Baivi, the goddess Maha, and the goddess Nivan. The first face of the Morrigan is Bavi, is the goddess of battle. Her name translates into the title Battle Crow. She is often related to the embodiment of death itself. She is herself part of the battle in both strategy, prophecy, anguish, and bloodshed. The crow screams over the battlefield for victory or loss and will feed on the slain, taking their spirit with her as they transcend from life to death. The second face of the Morrigan is the protection of the land and sovereignty. She takes action against those who have broken their sacred contract with the other world. With this face, her connection to horses, rulership, and warfare is key. She can be seen leading the charged, strong and bold, with a red mane. Her connection is a living embodiment for crops and fertility. She is a land that supports the people, food, growth and death. The goddess Nivan. She is another war goddess with magical gifts that are sacred, consecrated and privileged only to those she protects. She is the battle fury, warlike frenzy, strife, virulence, fierceness, and the intensity that drives the people to victory. Ancient lore states her battle cry would instill terror and incite panic within the enemy camps. The fear would be so great that many soldiers would drop dead from fright. The modern Morrigan. She is the power that helps us with shadow work, gives us the strength and courage to face our challenges and find our inner power. You know the Morrigan is around if crows, ravens or blackbirds show up in unusual places. Signs or symbols can also show up throughout your day. All are tied to your work with the Morrigan. She is not an energy that is always there for you. She expects you to take the information and energy bestowed upon you to do something with it. To not use it is a great dishonour to her. She is not there as a shoulder to cry on. She is there to show you your true path and what to do to get there and stay on it. Honour her with a black feather or a cup of dark wine or even a made-up song. She will return your gift in kind. Now let's get a little more input from our resident witches.
The Morrigan.
Oh, she is an intense and wonderful energy. She is very much, the thing that really resonates with me about the Morrigan is the self-sovereignty, and specifically the coming out of the victim complex. And what I found was so powerful when I've worked with her is she is wonderful about finding the little ways that we self-sabotage. A lot of times, I tend to think like, oh, I don't have a victim mentality. I'm empowered. I'm sovereign. And then I realized, okay, I have little habits like, procrastination and things like that. And so she is
Not taking personal responsibility. This is someone else's fault.
Exactly.
This is society's fault. This is the
Yes.
patriarchy's fault.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I would be further along, but I live in a society where blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And while yes, there are society injustices that are unfair and that
Absolutely.
we're addressing and working on, the deconstruction and the creation, the Morrigan focuses on our internal monologue with ourselves.
What can you do internally?
Exactly. And she's a warrior queen. She would be present in battle, and she would lead armies into battle. She would fly overhead as a crow. She also can go between realms. She's similar almost to some of the Nordic mythologies around the Valkyries as far as bringing souls into the afterlife. And she's one of the few entities that could go after souls in the other realm. There are stories of generals insulting her, and then they die and they think that they're safe, and she comes for them. And she's a goddess of accountability. So that's part of that energy. And she holds us accountable and expects a lot out of us because she knows our potential.
Which I think is imperative to the witch.
Yes.
So I believe a lot of us become witches because we want to stop being a victim of the world happening to us and instead create the world that we desire and dream of. But that's quite impossible without living in our sovereignty and taking radical responsibility for ourselves.
Yes.
And so if that's something we're struggling with, the Morrigan is a great dark goddess energy to tap into. And this is an up level.
Yes.
All the dark goddess energies are an up level because society doesn't exist in a way that encourages diving deep into the shadows.
Right.
The shadow is that dark goddess energy. And so the idea of taking personal control, well, that doesn't really serve existing governments, religions, societal structures where we're easier to deal with when we're manipulated.
Yes, when we have someone else to blame.
Right, exactly.
When our happiness is external, our happiness or our powers, and you'll be better if you buy this thing, or you do, you follow this mindset. And
don't live fully in your power.
Right.
Let us tell you what you fear and what you think.
Yes.
Let us spoon feed this to you, and you just sit and be quiet and do what we say.
Yes.
The Morrigan the Morrigan's not having that.
No. No. And what is unique about her is within that refusal to allow us to stay in the victim mindset if we work with her, she is so powerful about reminding us of the resources and tools that we already have. And that is, so it's not a savior thing. It's not that we call on the Morrigan to save us. We call on her to help show us the way. And often,
show us that we have the power to save ourselves.
Exactly. And so really, when she shows up, she's there to remind us, hey, you have this power, you have this resource, you have this gift, this talent, whichever, or you have it and you're looking at it the wrong way. Shift your mindset. And what I think is so interesting about these dark goddesses is they've been demonized by a lot of mainstream religions and a lot of society. And in reality, they're encouraging us to raise our vibration. And part of that is the taking responsibility for ourselves. And, that's not to say, of course, bad things happen in life. Things happen, and sometimes it's unfair, sometimes it's just bad luck. But the Morrigan reminds us that we have the total control of how we respond and the choices that we make. And I find that it can be, that energy, she is very quick to remind us of the choices we've made to get us in a situation, and then also reminds us Okay, and then now you have the power to make different choices, to thrive, to grow, to create, and manifest what you want.
And she's not going to allow us to stagnate.
No.
So I feel very connected to the idea of death and necessary destruction.
Yes.
And a fierce energy with the Morrigan. So she's not going to allow you to remain docile and accept certain circumstances, right? So when working with the Morrigan, we'll find things falling away.
Yes.
So the ending of relationships, the ending of vocations.
Yes.
She's going to challenge us to show up fully in our fierce power.
Yes.
In a positive way, in the sense of that we are owning our power and our sovereignty, which are words that keep coming up. Power and sovereignty are two very big words that coincide with the dark goddess.
Yes.
And so the Morrigan is, just like the other dark goddesses, going to, when working with her, help support us in that way.
Yes.
But be ready for things to start falling away. But remember, it's for our highest purpose.
Yes.
The Morrigan doesn't want us to be complacent.
Right, right. And I think what you were saying earlier, I love what you said about she's not going to allow us to stagnate, because sometimes what happens is, because the Morrigan is so fierce, a lot of people associate her energy starting out with that of anger. And there's nothing wrong with anger.
The angry witch.
The angry witch, yes. Angry witches.
There we go again.
Yes, yes. And the Morrigan reminds us of, it's okay to be angry. It's not okay to just stay in the anger and just to flail
Process.
about. Yeah. It's important for us to process, and it's important for us to take action in an empowered and constructive way. And it's kind of like, the Morrigan, we might say, well, shit happened. And Morrigan says, cool, what are you going to do about it? It's the taking action on your behalf. So it's not just the boundary setting, that's absolutely a part of it, but then how are you actively going to create the situation, the life, the relationship that you want? And again, these dark goddesses, we're very conditioned to look externally for validation, for sovereignty. And these dark goddesses,
tell me what to think, tell me what to do.
Yes.
Tell me what I believe. Tell me what's good, what's bad, what's
tell
right,
me how
what's
to
wrong.
be the best witch, the sexiest witch, tell me how to get a partner, all of that.
Yes.
And the Morrigan is huge on making us turn back inward. And it's a beautiful thing, because yes, there is absolutely a component of calling us on our shit and being like, this is where you're tripping yourself up, or this is the pattern you keep going back to. And then also, here's what you can do for growth. Here are the tools. And that's the other thing too, is that reminder of free will. We always have free will, and that's what these dark goddesses remind us, is like, they're not going to fix it for us.
They won't allow you to give away your power, because I think that's something that I see a lot, is even people giving away their power, whether it's to their guides or it's to their religion or their belief system or to these goddesses. The dark goddess has enough integrity to really slap us out of that and say, this is not my job. I'm here to support you and to nurture you through it. To be a mirror to you, to show you where you've been deviating, but in the end, it's your responsibility. That's how you own your power.
Yes.
Power is not a concept. Power is a physical, active manifestation.
Yes.
How we show up in the world.
Yes. And another thing, what you were saying reminded me of that as well, is the Morrigan, in certain stories, she shapeshifts. She can be a crow, she's linked to horses, and then she also embodies some aspects of the triple goddess, the maiden, mother, crone. And one thing that I've found with her is, and this is part of probably why society is uncomfortable with her, is she reminds us that we're not devalued as we age. There's value in each of the stages, and no one stage is placed above the other. And she is very big on, part of your arsenal is your inner wisdom. And, just like with other dark goddesses, being embodied and, really understanding the magic of our physical being linked with that energy, that it's not lessened just because we are a certain age or we look a certain way, or we, do a certain thing for a living. It's all about remembering our power and our unique gifts that we have to not only, it begins with the self-empowerment, but then it's also about what we have to share with the world. And, I think it's really fascinating to look at the energy that dark goddesses embody, and imagine what incredible things we could shift if more of us embrace that.
Well, and I love that you brought up the idea of the moon, the triple moon, because the moon is cyclical, right?
Yes.
The lunar cycles. And so one cycle is death. Like death is imperative in cycles. And so Morrigan,
she's big on death.
Big on death. Again, another taboo topic.
Yes.
That makes people very uncomfortable, but is, one true certainty. We're all going to die. That's the one thing we all know. But the fact that it's within society something that's hush-hush, that we don't talk about, that we're hugely uncomfortable with, again, that's why it falls into that dark goddess energy. But, I mean, imagine a world where we embraced cycles and the idea of death was something that could be celebrated or at least not brushed under the rug or greatly feared.
Yes.
It's crazy to think that we fear something that's inevitable.
Right.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. And I also think about death in terms of, I'm going to say another word that scares people, failure.
Right.
I remember when I first started working with the Morrigan and the truths that were arising after my sessions, and my ego was like, well, if I quit that job, that's failing, or if I end that friendship, that's failing. And even though we know that there are entrepreneurs, there's wildly successful people that failed many, many, many times.
You think of great artists that weren't even recognized in when they were alive, but are now revered.
Yes, exactly. And so I think the part of what's so intense about dark goddess energy is it's asking us to release our ego attachments. And that is, I think, a big fear around death, whether it's actual death or whether it's failure, is this release of, okay, well, this is my identity and who am I? And it's not really, when we think about it, it's not an identity death, it's a transformation. Because when we remove that thing that we thought we were attached to, that opens up opportunities.
Which we learn in the death card in the tarot.
Yes.
We know.
Exactly.
So that same messaging there, that death is necessary if we want to continue on with our cycle. With the cycle, whether that is life and death and reincarnation, whether you believe that or not, or whether it's just cycles of life.
Yes.
Without death, we're never going to be able to up level to our next highest potential.
Right.
That's, that's the feminine. We're talking about dark goddesses and that is connected to feminine energy in any gendered body.
Yes.
But the feminine is cyclical. And it's so funny that the dark goddess, dark energies is the lunar.
Yeah.
It's the moon. The feminine is connected to the moon.
Yep.
As opposed to the masculine being connected to the sun, right? Well, a lot of times people just want to exist in that sun, in the masculine, but the dark goddesses are asking us to walk under the moon. Yeah. Where there is less illumination, however, so much to be revealed. Yes.
And I love what you were saying about, regardless of the gendered body, we all have that cyclical energy. we all have the power to access the energies of the Morrigan. And oftentimes, I think back to, here we've had a lot of weather phenomenon in this country where I know in the South we had the horrible freezes, and nature even, everything up here dead, and everything just looked completely barren. And I'm a garden witch, and so I was like, is anything gonna come back? And I remember there are several things that have grown back that are even fuller than they were before. And every time that I know you and I have experienced various deaths as we've cycled through our lives, and it's allowed us to create something bigger and better,
more aligned,
and it's allowed us to align more with our own power. Because again, each time, I think too, part of what scares people about death and failure is what the Morrigan does. She's a mirror. And when there is death, we are invited to assess, okay, what wasn't working? And then what can we do differently in order to grow from that? And I think it's very valuable that we shift into that mindset as well. And
seeing death as a positive thing.
Yes.
Seeing necessary destruction as something not to be feared, but something that can, we see that in the Tower card in tarot, right? Like something needs to be burnt down in order for new foundations to be built. Yeah, and if you look at the collective now, 2020, the pandemic, that was a huge death. And with the way we were running things, the way society was structured, and then we've had to adapt. And the people that are thriving, the businesses that have come back, they are, looking at their authentic base and their authentic frame and allowing themselves to adapt. And relationships.
Yes, that too.
And vocations, and even how people want to live their lives.
Yes.
If people don't go into the shadows, if they don't go into the depths, if they're not open to things ending for new beginnings, again, that stagnation leaves you what doesn't work for the witch, right?
No,
it does not allow for that ultimate manifestation of a witch. So maybe that's okay for someone who's not looking for that kind of life. But I've never met a witch who felt complacent in just being a victim of circumstances.
Right. No, and I think to differentiate, going back to what you were saying with cycles, there's a difference between just being a victim of circumstances versus being in a state of rest, of being in a state of, I'm not sure what my next move is yet. I know this isn't working. I know it needs to change, but I'm not sure where it's going. So I'm reflecting. I'm a hermit.
We're just going to talk about tarot.
Exactly,
but witches love tarot. So
yes.
It's nice to put this in perspective. That way, the hermit in the tarot asks us to go within.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be still, to take a moment of internal reflection and meditation.
Right.
And when the hermit emerges, they have much more clarity.
Yes. And I mean, while we're on the tarot, we'll throw astrology in there too. And like when we talk about retrograde cycles, those embody dark goddess energy, especially the going within, going into the shadows. Retrogrades are all about just going into the shadows. And
reassessing the way things are done.
Yes.
How are you communicating?
Yeah.
How are you showing and receiving love?
Exactly. Yeah. How are you showing up for yourself? How are your daily patterns helping you or hindering you? It's all about, then we have the larger cycles. Like I know here at Minx, we have a lot of people who are around the age of 30, so they're in their Saturn return. And anyone who's familiar with that.
Morrigan would be great to work with during a Saturn return.
Yeah, that's totally her energy.
Which happens around between the ages like 29, 31-ish.
Yes.
That's a huge transformational time in one's life.
Yeah.
And the Morrigan can help during a transformation.
Yes, and that is the first big transformation we have as adults, where we are called on our shit around being the victim. Because and a lot of times, and I remember being in this mindset, you have things that happen in childhood, you have things that happen in young adulthood, and
it doesn't justify it, it doesn't give it permission.
Right.
It's processing,
right,
and being able to take that power back.
Right. And so in the Saturn return, the reason why it can be jarring is Saturn is the energy of that is like the energy of the Morrigan. It's confronting us with anything that we have either refused to address, or things that we've pushed away for various reasons. Sometimes we have to push things back because we're just in survival mode. And what our Saturn return with the Hermit card and Tarot, what the Morrigan is all about is, okay, now's the time to reflect on that and to call your power back to you.
Be the warrior of your own life.
Be the warrior, exactly.
Which goes back to, how she's represented.
Yeah.
So, so the Morrigan, a great energy to work with when we need to take personal responsibility for our own lives.
Yep.
When we're going through transition, and we want to be the one that is, growing in their highest potential throughout that transition.
Yes, taking positive action on our behalf.
Right.
Yeah.
And also when we need to tap into that level of fierceness.
Yes.
She's not to be reckoned with. So maybe if you feel like I need to show up more as, a fierce creature, whether that's at work or if that's, as a mother or father or, in some kind of like family dynamic.
Yeah, it's active advocation of those boundaries where, it's very much, what you were saying about where we are taking action for our benefit or asserting boundaries. You're saying, this is what I need. Or this is what I'm going to do for myself.
Right.
Just very, very much the fierce energy. That's a great way to put it.
I think, the best way to wrap this up is the reminder that to be a witch, we need to own our own personal power, and we need to recognize where we're giving that power away and reclaim our sovereignty in all areas of our life.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to diving into other aspects of that with the rest of the goddesses and energies.
Yes. We have quite a crew.
Quite a smashing dialogue for my witches. So much so that I must share my own tale of the Morrigan with you. So, my lovelies, grab a skull, warm blanket, and might I suggest a cup of tonic to relax the nerves? I call this tale the book.
The vineyard in Eastern Europe was one of the most respected, located in the southeast of Crimean coastline. The owner was Sarah Talbert, a Yank from Tennessee. One day, 10 years ago, she showed up in Ukraine, bought a small plot of land, and well, the rest was history. By the time she reached the age of 35, she had turned the small piece of land into $1 billion wine enterprise. Sarah looked back with remorse and turned to her companion. "I'm not ready to go. Please, not yet." There was no reply to her plead. Stop. This is the end of our story. To understand how Sarah got here, we need to start from the beginning. Sarah Jessica Talbert grew up in Bedford County, Bell Buckle, Tennessee, USA. Her father was incarcerated when she was just 3 years old, leaving her mother to hold down 2 jobs to keep the family with a roof over their heads and food to eat. This left Sarah a lot of time on her own. At age 19, she found herself incarcerated for 2 years on breaking and entering charges. At age 21, both her parents had passed away, which left her with a small house and its belongings. It was at that time the book came into her possession. It was an old, beat-up leather book. Its pages were yellowed and worn. It just showed up one day at her front door, delivered without a return address or way to contact the sender. Inside the front cover was an inscription. Elizabeth, all you were ever taught and learned resides in this book. It is our family legacy, passed on from generation to generation. Use it to expand your gifts, help others, and teach others who wish to follow our way of life. Sarah threw herself into this book, reading a little every night. She was fascinated by what she read and learned. Although she was not raised religious or spiritual, the book called to her. There was one chapter she found extremely interesting. It had to do with the dark energy called the Morrigan. Sarah had strong ties to the land and was considered a green thumb. No matter what she grew, it would take hold. The chapter about the Morrigan went into heavy detail. It described Morrigan's ties to the land, protector, and ability to move between our world and the other world. Sarah was energized by this chapter and decided to put what she read to the test. Seeing is believing, she said to herself. The next day she made her way to the local nursery. Sarah, what are we going to do with all these grape growing supplies? You know this land wasn't built to grow grapes. Old man Brent knew the land like the back of his hand. And when it came to growing crops, he had no problem telling folks when they were wrong. Sarah knew the exchange was coming and had a response ready. It's just an experiment I'm doing. Nothing too big, just a hobby. Old man Brant just shook his head. It's your money. I don't have what you need here. I need to bring it in from another town. Come back next Monday and I'll have it ready for you. Sarah finished setting up the small garden area for her growing experiment. Everything was in place. The grape seeds were planted, support for the vines was in place, the ground had the recommended nutrients. Now all she needed to do was add water and read the incantation from the book. She felt a little awkward and foolish at first, but her confidence increased as she moved through the spell work. Morrigan, I call upon thee. Guide me and protect what is mine. Bring fruit to what I grow. Walk the path with me till the end. She continued with the rest of the spell, bonding herself and the Morrigan together for the task at hand. She closed the book, feeling energized, excited and hopeful. She began her short walk back to her house when she heard a loud squawk behind her. There, in the middle of her garden, was a single crow. It squawked a few more times before taking to the air and flying away. Sarah smiled. She knew the meaning behind the crow. That night, Sarah had dreamed about the Morrigan. The Morrigan spoke. I am your guide. I will always be here for you. Your greatness is near. Remember and heed my words. Use your gifts for good. Help those in need. Teach those who will follow our ways. Give back to the world what was given to you. With that, the dream ended and Sarah was awake. The rest of Sarah's story was a whirlwind of events. Her grapes grew healthy and strong. They grew to maturity in a matter of months. Sarah tried her hand at winemaking. By the end of the year, she sold her wine at the local markets and in Chattanooga, Memphis, Nashville and others. Wine enthusiasts could not get enough of Sarah's small batch process. At age 25, she acquired 10 plots of land in the fertile region of Crimea, Ukraine. Her business flourished each year, bringing more and more business worldwide. Her wine won many international competitions. The Morrigan was true to her word. Sarah would often meet the Morrigan in her dreams and continue to read from the book. Yet, as the years passed, Sarah became less kind and more withdrawn. She never took the time to be thankful, found it absurd to give to charity or help others. She also took extra care to guard her gifts and keep them secret. The old leather book was always locked away and never used outside its room, where Sarah held the only key. Every year, Sarah would release a special anniversary bottle of wine, and every year Sarah seemed to visibly grow older. At age 30, she looked twice her age, and her health became a problem. Sarah could not stand for long periods, and exhaustion would take her. She stopped showing her face to the public. Those years were hard for her, as she could not do much for her company but focus on only one thing, releasing her yearly anniversary wine to the world. At 35, Sarah stood before a large gathering to release another highly sought-after small batch run of her prized wine. She looked gaunt, weak, eyes sunk in, teeth yellowed, hair grey, and unable to stand independently. Her doctors were dumbfounded on her condition and could not treat her other than making her comfortable with medication. The gathering was extremely tiring for her, and she moved to her bedroom to retire for the night. She awoke to someone standing in the darkness just out of eyesight. She tried to flick on the light, but nothing happened. There was enough moonlight coming through the window. As the shadow approached, Sarah recognized the face. It was Morrigan. Confused, Sarah just stared at Morrigan. With a gentle smile, she took Sarah's hand. With hardly any effort, Sarah could lift herself to a standing position. She felt amazing, full of energy, as if she could take off and fly around the room. Now Sarah was even more confused. The Morrigan reached out her hand and pointed to the bed. There laid an old, dried-up body with no life to it. At that moment, Sarah realized she was no longer alive. Sarah looked back with remorse and turned to her companion. "I'm not ready to go, please not yet." There was no reply to her plead, only another gentle smile. Then the Morrigan spoke. "Sarah, I gave you the power to bring your gifts to the world. What was given came with conditions. Give thanks, help others, teach, so others can learn. You did none of these things. You only took but never gave back. Every year you did not heed my words. The magic took from the only place it could. It took from your health. It drained you of the only thing it could take, so that you could continue and live the life you built for yourself. I come now to give you my final gift." With those words, the Morrigan bestowed upon Sarah her last gift. She snatched Sarah from this world and sent her to the other world. Sarah's death was final. It was 3 PM and the doorbell rang. It was the courier. He handed a box to Megan and moved quickly back to the delivery truck to continue his route. The box had no address or sender. Inside was a leather book. Megan opened the cover and read the inscription on the first page. It read, "Sarah, all you were ever taught and learned resides in this book. It is our family legacy passed on from generation to generation. Use it to expand your gifts, help others, and teach others who wish to follow our way of life." That night, Megan began to read and read and read.
Ah, you are still here. I take it you were not frightened enough? The Morrigan is a beautiful goddess in energy, yet unforgiving. Very unforgiving. If one day you receive a knock at your door and find an old worn letter book sitting on your doorstep, heed my warning. Use it for good, give back to others, and teach what goodness you find within. This has been a series of witches.